Good Wednesday morning. I'm going to optimize the mics and then set our camera up because this morning we're excited to have a special co-host. Let me get it set up here. I don't know if I can get it to stay, Mom. Let's see. My mother, she is our special guest co-host this morning. I'm Tara Thomas. Thanks so much for waking up with us. We went ahead and started live about 5 minutes early because we're up, even though we're in mountain time and 2 hours behind Iowa or Central Time, even though it's the mountain time zone. Thank you to our friend Jean for correcting me. I had said Monday that Arizona is Pacific. It's actually technically the mountain time zone, but because they don't adhere to daylight saving half the year, they're only an hour behind, and then the other half of the year, 2 hours behind. So when we decided to go on this spring break trip, I didn't realize, oh, that's right. We're springing forward. So now we are 2 hours ahead of my daughter in Arizona. So that means we had to wake up at 4:45 this morning. So how are you doing?
A little tired this morning. Good morning.
So how do you feel about co-hosting with me? Were you nervous about it at all?
No, not really nervous because I knew that I didn't have to make anything up. I knew you would.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom just turned 81 in February, and tell them about your career, your life. What did you do for your line of work?
Well, I was first a primary teacher, all primary grades. Did that for 23 years. And then decided I really kind of liked the look of going into administration. So I went back to Illinois State University, got my doctorate, and got a principalship. And the last 14 years of my career, I was a primary principal.
Yeah. And that was back then really unusual for women to get into those administrative roles. So part of you having the opportunity was you had to get your doctorate.
Right. I felt like that would get my shoe in the door, and it did. Mm-hmm. Right.
And so during my, I think, middle school years, around 7th, 8th grade, that's when you were back to school at Illinois State, where she and my dad both got their undergrad degrees. And then my sister and my grandma Thomas, and then my great-grandma Jones on your side, right?
And great-grandma Sarver. Both of my grandmothers, and then Jim's mother, Jim and I, and then Sarah. So long tradition at Illinois State to go into education.
And Illinois State has a good reputation for educators.
Teachers, right.
Yeah.
And back then when I went, and Jim, it was Illinois State Normal University, and all of us, we were going to be teachers.
Yeah.
There were no other colleges.
And for women, the choices were like teacher or nurse, pretty much, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
So after you were in the classroom all those years, you missed the kids, but you were happy to get into administration.
Right. I felt like I could make a big difference with students in a classroom, but in a school, I could make a huge difference with kids all across all grade levels. It was a nice change.
Yeah, so in my hometown, Peoria, Illinois, she ran 2 elementary schools in that district, 2 buildings. And then during that time, tons of awards, achievements, high student performance, which was great. And then you ended up retiring at what age?
I was 57 when I retired.
After how many years?
After 37 years in education.
So now at 81, you've enjoyed your retirement all these years.
I definitely have. I have not looked back, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, and we've been fortunate all these years to do a lot of traveling with my mom. For those of you who follow Amanda and me, we always talk about all of our personal pursuits, and one of ours for my family is always trying to travel with my mom, and she's always a good sport and really tries to keep up with whatever we're doing, right? So this week we were in Sedona. So we flew into Mesa Friday night. We actually got in pretty late, and then we spent the last few days in Sedona, and that's where we were live Monday morning. It was a beautiful place to visit. I had been there before, only passing through one time when we went to the Grand Canyon. So it was nice to stay there and just really experience all the sights and the restaurants and all the things. It's definitely pricey in Sedona for those of you who've been there, no surprise. And then we just yesterday drove all the way down, then not far. It was about an hour and 45 minutes to drop the boys off in Peoria because their beloved Seattle Mariners have the stadium here for spring training. Oh, that's sure. Yeah, my mom's getting a text, so I have to silence her phone because I'm using her phone here. I'm using her phone to track any of the comments, so I turned the ringer off. So anyway, came down, dropped the boys off, and the Seattle Mariners, they share their stadium in Peoria with the San Diego Padres. So there was a game yesterday between San Diego and Seattle. And while the boys were there, we still couldn't check into where we are now, an Airbnb in Glendale. So we went to see the movie now. That's the Emily Bronte classic novel, Wuthering Heights, that's now adapted for the screen with Margot Robbie. And I can't think of his name. The guy, Jacob something, who played.
I didn't retain the last name.
He stars in that Oscar-nominated Frankenstein movie, but he's also the co-star in Wuthering Heights. He plays Heathcliff. What were your thoughts on the movie?
I really loved it. I thought the cinematography was just fantastic. And like I told my grandson, this guy was easy on the eyes.
Yeah, Jacob.
So handsome.
She told my son Thomas that Jacob can come by her house anytime. He plays Heathcliff, you know. So this is what was so interesting when we went to look for a time. We actually went to 2 malls in the area, again, trying to, you know, stay cool, because this week in Phoenix, they're breaking records. I think just as the Midwest was getting hit with the blizzard, and it was like, I think the feel yesterday I saw in Waterloo was -10. We're on the opposite end of the spectrum here. We were well into the 90s here yesterday. And so we ended up deciding, let's go to a movie theater. And oh my gosh, so many movie theaters down here to choose from. So we found a time that worked. And then when we drove to that theater, it was just so nice. Every seat was like, you know, the larger stadium seats or the theater seats that recline. So you had your neck pillow. And
it was wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. So we enjoyed the movie, and then we also went out to dinner. Really nice place last night near here. And so, I mean, we're in Glendale, and then the boys are going today to another spring training game in Surprise. So because it's so hot and this Airbnb has a small pool, I need to try to get a little bit of sun on my legs at least.
Right.
Yeah. So
that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, we'll probably pool it today. Now, where we're at in Glendale, this Airbnb, it's kind of like a smaller retirement community that has a lake adjacent to it here, but you know, it's Arizona, so it's not like we're on the beach or anything, but it's still been great for us, especially getting out of all that cold and snow. And you guys even got snow in Peoria.
Right. And very, very cold is the report.
So the good news, supposedly those of you following the weather know by Friday, it should return to the 70s. And so that's exciting because that's right when we're coming home. So after today, we're going to head south, and our third stop on our spring break trip is in Tucson, and that's where we're going to link up with Charlotte, my daughter, who's down there, and we're going to try tomorrow to drive by Nancy Guthrie's house.
I'm scared you brought that up. We do not want a repeat of a Savannah and a Guthrie and a Nancy in this situation. So I'm praying I don't get kidnapped.
Exactly. Thankfully, we're not, you know, we don't have the money that Savannah probably had.
No. So whoever's out there, you will not get a lot of money.
And
so don't even think about it.
Like, well, and it's awful to say, but you know, like Nancy, my mom's in pretty good shape for 81. So it would be a battle if someone tried to take you.
I could probably go without my medication for a while, but Terrible, terrible
Oh, I know.
situation.
It is so crazy. And as you guys know, we've talked about this, the way that it dropped from the headlines after just being wall to wall coverage. So sad, and still thinking about how awful that is and hoping some way, somehow for some kind of positive resolution. But it's hard to know, how it's going to play out now that so much time has passed. So that house in Tucson is in a very nice area of the Catalina foothills, and we're not sure, what the access is around there. But of course, the former journalist in me wanted to check out that location when we're down in Tucson. Now, I should also mention that this place where we are right now in Glendale is the home of the Arizona Cardinals. So for those of you who are NFL fans, it's a beautiful stadium. So we drove by it a couple times yesterday on our way to the movie theater, and it is definitely crowded down in Phoenix compared to like Eastern Iowa, but the roads are so expansive. They have sometimes 6 or 7 lanes, including that HOV lane, which you guys know is the lane if you have more than one person in your car, you can use to beat the traffic, that far left lane. And they have those in Washington State, Minneapolis area. If you've ever been driving in that heavier traffic, when you get into that HOV lane, which is the acronym for high occupancy vehicle, then it makes the bypassing of some of the heavier traffic more easy. So it was not bad with the traffic because we headed out for dinner during rush hour. But definitely, like anywhere, when there's good weather or a lot of amenities, it attracts a lot of people. So I would say we've seen a lot of retirees.
Yes, a lot of older people.
A lot of people with walkers and canes heading into the restaurant last night.
Right. A lot of people retire down here and they love the weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this week, I think it's the first time in forever that they've had this potential high heat during the week of March, at least. So they said if it got over 100, they would be breaking a record.
Right.
So we'd rather it be hot, but this is a little more extreme, than we thought it would be. Okay, we have the group chat, meaning comments and interaction, is part of our game here. So we wanted to bring in the conversation. Some of you, the viewer, hi, Katie. Good morning, ladies. Hope you're enjoying spring break. Dar said good morning. And Alice said, this is great. 2 lovely ladies. Hi, Tara's mom. Great to see you. You don't look a day over 65.
Oh,
that's nice.
Yes, that made my day.
And our friend Jenny's watching. Danielle, have a fantastic rest of your trip. Thank you. Thanks for those comments. So let's talk about life in Peoria for you. So in 2020, I talk about it a lot. That's when my dad was diagnosed with dementia. And then you instantly had to become his caregiver for the 10-month stretch then that really for us was such a blow. I mean, it was so life-changing. So just thinking back to that time, what is your advice for other women that are going through that, being a caregiver? How did you navigate it?
It was very, very difficult. And in my mind, I knew that there was no question about it. That was my commitment, forever. And till death do us part. And it was just something you don't want to go through, but many people are thrown into that circumstance. And it definitely was taking its toll on me, but I did what I had to do.
When you think about then the transition back, so you looking back, so she went from being in her home with my dad, their home, a caregiver. Then when he went into a memory care facility, he was only in there for 2 weeks. And then you ended up finding a condo at that point when my dad was still living. And the plan was to downsize because your house was too big.
Well, and we had a lot of stairs. And he was starting to fall, and it was a very unsafe situation for him. And so I just by chance went online and typed in condos, Peoria, Illinois. And this condo was the first one that showed up. And I told Tara and her sister Sarah, I said, we've got to go see that condo. It just looked beautiful. And we went one day, put an offer in, got it, and had a closing in 30 days. And the intent was to take your dad with, and that didn't happen. And then he passed away, and I had 1 month to decide what to take and move into the condo.
So it was a lot. I mean, a lot of change for you in a short time.
Well, and when you lose your spouse, everything changes. You can't think of one thing that there's not some change to it.
And you ended up, by moving into that condo, being really happier that you didn't have that huge house to maintain.
Yes, and the beauty of the house, I always thought wanted to keep that house in the family because it was a very unique house. And I talked to Sarah's, my other daughter, Tara's sister, and I said, I think it would be wonderful if you and Will and the kids move into that house. And they did. And it was just such a relief to me that I could leave everything that I didn't want to.
Because she had just an incredible collection, an array of dishes and
stuff.
A lot of entertaining that you did over the years in that home. It was a beautiful home that they had added to and upgraded. They put an incredible pool in the back. There was this cabana, but it's not, I mean, it was more than a cabana. What would you call it? It was like a pool house, but you could go in there and watch TV and sleep if you wanted to. I mean, it had couches.
Right.
Yeah. And where did you guys get that from? Because it was brought in.
It was in Wisconsin. It was called Garden Gazebos. Was a place in Wisconsin. Of course, I can't think of the name of the town. And we actually drove up there, and it was a family that it was all prefabricated, and you could pick all the details out, and a crew of 4 men came and brought all the parts, and it took them 2 days to put that all together.
Incredible.
And I'll tell you, it wasn't cheap. And of course, Jim wanted something that looked more like a garage. And I said, if it doesn't look nice, we're not going to do one.
Yes, aesthetically, it was definitely more pleasing than what he probably would have chosen, the guy. So they had that pool for years that they enjoyed when they moved to this home after, the grandkids, when the grandkids started coming, that's when you kind of upsized.
Right.
And then growing up, I've talked about this in Peoria, Illinois, we had a pool that you and Dad put in yourselves when I was 3.
We did. All the parts were dumped on the front yard, and it was small, in-ground. But it was an in-ground, fiberglass sides, low-hung liner. I don't know how we did it, but we put it in.
Yeah, so that was a house and a pool and just...
And you were 3 years old when we did it.
In the 70s, yes.
And Tara would play in the dirt piles when we worked putting the pool together.
Yeah, so that house, you guys moved in there when you got married. You got married in 1969, and then what year, though, did you move in?
We went in the house in 72.
Okay. And it was how
to
much?
The day when we moved in, Tara was born May 1st of 73.
Okay.
And we bought that house for $27,000. And when we sold it, we got $144,000.
Yeah, it was a beautiful house. And at the time, especially in Peoria, the housing was just not that expensive when you went to sell it for what you had put into it.
Right.
But then the home you guys moved into, you ended up putting a lot more even into that, just
the
because
money
you were more established, you were retired, and you had more money.
Right. The money we put into that one we moved into, we could have built a new one.
Yeah. But it was a beautiful,
it was a very unique house, and the back cul-de-sac. Right, and the backyard alone, people would comment and say, this is like a resort.
Yeah, because it was butting up to a wooded area,
Mhm.
so the backdrop made it feel like you weren't in the city. It was like you were out in the woods, and then they added the pool and this beautiful gazebo, and so it was a great space for us to visit all the years when the kids were growing up, and then when you ended up moving into the condo, that has just been such a great space and place to be
Yes.
because she's on the third floor. So she has cathedral ceilings with no above, her neighbors, no overhead neighbors. And then below, you take an elevator down and you have underground parking,
Right.
which is a gift in this Midwest weather.
Oh, it's wonderful. I haven't regretted 1 minute going to that condo.
And you've met some other widows, Dawn and Shirley.
Yes, and I just commented the other day, our floor is soon to probably be all widows. It's just, I mean, every time you go down to the elevator, if you see an obituary on the bulletin board, you pray that it's not you.
Exactly, right? You're like, I'm glad my obituary isn't up there yet.
Right. You don't want to make the bulletin board.
I love it. So, okay, so talk about being a widow, because what's been the biggest surprise that you could have never anticipated?
Well, there's pros and cons, mostly cons. You find out who your really true friends are. And it's not uncommon. We had 2 major couple groups, and you're not included with those couples, many of them again. There's one couple that have been true blue to me and call at least once a month and say, let's go out for dinner. And you don't hear from many of them. And actually, as a widow, you're a threat because you're available.
That's true. That's true.
And you're a threat to those women. And some of them, they don't want you around their husband because you might take them away.
That's hilarious. That's so true. And so it is crazy, as small as, life is or the world is. So because my parents were educators, my dad was a longtime school superintendent, you guys ran in circles with a lot of educators. So this
Right.
couple that she speaks of, the guy was my high school principal. And so that's what's kind of funny
Right.
is small world that
Sandy and Carolyn have been true friends.
Yeah.
And like that old saying, friends come and friends go. And a lot of them go very quickly when you are a widow.
Yeah, and you didn't realize just how much sort of, recognizing, like you said, the impact would happen when you least expect it. And so
Right.
you said sometimes it could be like a song
Yeah,
that
right.
triggers the memories.
Yes, those triggers can be there, and songs especially, and you listen to the words more, and some of them really hit home. And it's been almost 5 years, and it can still happen,
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't know what it's going to be. They become farther apart. Those moments, you don't have them that often like you did at the beginning, but it's always there, and you think of it every day, and there's something that makes you sad. Now on the pro side, it's nice that you can control the remote.
Exactly. Yes.
And you can control the thermostat.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Because one always wants it hotter or colder
Yeah,
than the
yeah.
other. And, at first I thought, there's no way that I can live alone.
Mhm.
I always said, I hope I go first because I don't want to live alone. Because
Right.
I saw my father go through that. And it happened. And at first, I didn't think I could. But I've been so fortunate to have both girls support me. They call me multiple times a day. I'm involved with my grandchildren, and I really have the biggest thing I have learned. I can live alone.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's true. It was, well, and we've talked about how, you feel conflicted because you want your independence and you want to have your space.
Right.
So that keeps you from living with Bird or me. We call my sister Bird. So she knows if she ever felt like she couldn't do it anymore, she could move in with us. But then you always say you don't want to do that because you want your own space too.
No,
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't going to happen. And Sarah and Will, they said, they both said, especially Will, he said, you cannot live alone. You need to be with somebody now. And I said, no, that's not going to work. And I pulled a kind of a funny joke on them the day that I left the house. And they moved in and I was ready to go for my first night to the condo. And so I got in the car. Of course, it was very, very tough. And I forgot my purse at the house. So I went back and I went in and I said, guys, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. And they kind of looked at me and I said, I'm kidding. I forgot my purse.
And then they were like, oh, great.
They were like, oh.
Yeah, we already had plans for your bedroom, right? So if you're just joining us and you are wondering, who is this guest co-host? It's my mom, Joanne Thomas, and she was gracious to join me as we're on spring break together. So when I knew that Amanda was going to be traveling and unavailable for the show, I had said to my mom, well, you can co-host with me. And she reluctantly agreed to do it. So we had to set our alarms. You were already up, right?
I
woke up early.
I said
too.
it, but I was up.
Yeah, so we got up. So we're in the mountain time zone, but we're 2 hours behind right now compared to the Midwest. So yeah, so the boys are still asleep, and this is an Airbnb that we're in for a couple nights. So they're upstairs, but I'm sure our voices are carrying up the stairs, but they'll survive. Okay, I wanted to check in and see if we had any more comments here. So another thing that we can talk about is, for you, life was different than my experience because I grew up in a city in Peoria, a very urban area. And then my mom, you grew up on a farm. So tell us where you grew up and what life was like.
I grew up on a farm right outside of Gibson City, Illinois, and absolutely wonderful time on the farm. I loved the farm. Always had dogs and cats, and I had a pony, and my pony's name was Sweetheart, and I was pretty sure I wanted to be a cowboy. And I had spurs and saddlebags, and I'd pack my lunch, and Sweetheart and I would ride out to the field, and it was great having a pony. And the downside was when I got into high school. Back then, we would get snowstorms like we're getting now. Mm-hmm. I mean, feet. We would literally be snowed in. And it would always be when there was a basketball game or a school dance, and there I was stuck out in a snowstorm and couldn't get into town. And I always swore, if I get out of this place, I'm never going to live on the farm because I don't like to be snowed in. But there have been days I wish I could go back to the farm.
Yes, definitely.
And it's wonderful. And I was driving tractors and cars when I was 12 years old. And my grandmother owned a car dealership in Gibson City, Jones Motor Sales. She let all of the grandkids drive her around. So at 12 years old, I was driving her around. And
I love it.
It was a wonderful experience. I wouldn't give up those farm days for anything.
So my grandmother, my mom's mom, was named Charlotte, and she died when you were young.
Yes, I was 32 years old. My mother,
excuse me.
My mother died of a heart attack at 57 years old. And I think that was another big part of me retiring and to enjoy life. Mm-hmm. and every pain in the chest. Well, this is it. I'm going to join Mom.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, here I am at 81, and it hasn't happened yet.
And you did end up, you and Dad were vacationing with some friends in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and that higher elevation
Yes.
did trigger a heart problem.
Yes, and ended up going by ambulance across the Grand Teton Mountains to Idaho Falls. And it
Yeah.
was it was very scary. And consequently, I've ended up with a cardiologist and get my checkups, and am on some medication for it, but that controls the high blood pressure. And they said it was very common for seniors to have problems when you're in high elevation.
Yeah, so we were even concerned going to Sedona, because Sedona is, at least some points of it are in the 5,000 to 6,500
Right.
feet above sea level.
Right.
But we were, adjacent to the Red Rocks. We weren't hiking up to them.
Right.
So we weren't quite as high.
And I did experience the lightheadedness.
Yeah, so when we first got there Friday night into Saturday, you felt that lightheadedness.
Right.
Or Saturday, I should say. So and then it subsided, but you didn't have any other symptoms, right?
No,
Yeah,
no.
that was the only thing. So what I was saying about my grandmother, so her name, Charlotte, when I was 5 is when she died. And when she had that heart attack, I was only 5. And so at some point when I was quite young, I just remember thinking, if I ever have a daughter, I'm going to name her Charlotte. And then that came true. And so
Right.
she's appropriately named, because like you and Charlotte are outdoors people. I mean, and Charlotte loves the outdoors,
Right.
which is
It
not
was
really
And my mother loved the outdoors. She got that from her grandfather.
Yeah.
Or from her father, my grandfather. And Charlotte is very appropriately named.
Yeah.
And my mother would just be so proud to know that. And
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
it's a pretty name.
It worked out well. And then who knew that it would become so popular, in part because of Princess Charlotte. So our Charlotte is 19, but now that has been, for the last few years, the name Charlotte is always in the top 10, even the top 5 usually, of the most popular names in Iowa. So it's kind of funny that now there are a lot of younger Charlottes running around that I see. But when I named her Charlotte, that was pretty unique at the
Right.
time. You didn't hear about a lot of Charlottes. If you're just joining us, we're already coming up on the half-hour point. My mom's doing a great job being my guest co-host this morning, live from Glendale, Arizona, home of the Arizona Cardinals, where we are as part of our spring break trip in Arizona. It's our second stop of the week. We started in Sedona. What a beautiful place. Definitely that peaceful, scenic landscape of Red Rocks, and then came down to the very hot Phoenix area for part of the week, the middle of the week. And then we're going to end up to the south in Tucson, where my daughter at the University of Arizona. So here are some comments. Oh, Sam, our cousin Sam is watching. Good morning. Nice to see you both. Hi, Sam.
Hi,
nice
Sam.
to see you. Lisa said, being a caregiver is so hard and nobody understands unless you're in it. I've been a full-time caregiver for my dad with Alzheimer's. He lived with me and my 3 kids for 6 years. Wow. Bless you for taking care of him as long as you could. You'll never regret that.
Right.
Yeah. And that was always your goal, was to try to keep Dad at home with you
Yes.
as long as you could. And that takes a toll, because it's not obviously just the emotional, it's the physical, because he, even in his deterioration with dementia, he was still very strong.
Right.
And that was tough. I mean,
Yes.
there were times where
and then he went into Parkinson's also. And
the type he had, Lewy body,
right.
Parkinson's comes in tandem with the decline.
Right. So and like I say, when he started to fall, that's when it got very, very bad.
Well, and then knowing that she would feel terrible if he fell, and if that's what, caused him to pass away or have an even more serious injury. I mean, that would have been
And then the
awful.
other thing that stood out, he would be up wandering at night.
Mhm.
He wouldn't sleep at night. And
Which is
I
common for
never
dementia.
knew when he was going to get up. And then consequently, then I wasn't getting any sleep. And then that just doubles the stress when the caregiver isn't able to get rest. It makes for very bad days.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This is from Mary, I am only into 6 months of losing my husband. You are right about how everything changes. It will never be the same. I'm still in the big house, not making any life changes at this time. And that is hard because you had so much change so fast.
Right.
And so it was a lot, for you to go through. Talk about some of the things, you miss. One of them with Dad being cars and him helping with cars.
They're just, you don't realize how much your husband does for you until you don't have them. For example, he always took care of the cars.
Mm-hmm.
They were always cleaned. They were always gassed. And I did keep both cars. And one is a very old SUV, and I call that my truck. And then I have a newer one that only has 27,000 miles on it, and it's a sporty little Lexus. So some days I feel like trucking, and some days I feel kind of sporty. But anyway, so I've even said out loud, Jim, where are you? The cars need cleaned. And that you have to take responsibility for everything. And the taxes, he always took care of the taxes. So I have to do that. And fortunately, I was able to move into being totally independent a lot easier than some women. Some women have to be thrown into this. They've never paid the bills.
Mm-hmm.
They've never balanced a checkbook. Their husband did everything for them. And it was very equal with us. He had his things he did. I had my things I did. So I was fortunate in the financial part that I could handle that.
Yeah.
And he used to always say to me, oh, you're going to be fine if I go first. You'll be able to take care of yourself. But,
sorry,
there are
Gonna
many,
cough.
or here's another thing. We love to travel, and
Traveled the world.
I would still be able to travel. Yes, it would be different. A wheelchair in the big airports, and maybe couldn't do the excursions that required a lot of walking. But we would still be traveling, and I really miss that.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate that both daughters and families take me on their trips. So,
but you're also very generous and help pay for a lot of the accommodations.
I kind of joke with people, and I say, well, if you pay for where we're going to stay, they'll let you go.
It's such a blessing for us because we love having her, and our kids, the grandkids love Nana, and we have a lot of laughs, make a lot of memories. And it is something that for you and Dad, you always say you were grateful that when you retired at 57, you didn't wait, and you guys were fortunate that you worked so hard all those years that you were in a position then where you were able to travel.
Yes.
So you and Dad went on tons of trips. What are your highlights? What are two or three of your top trips?
I always had on my bucket list to go to Tahiti.
Yeah.
And we did that South Seas trip, and it was a cruise. We hit like 8 different islands in the South Seas. That was phenomenal. If you get a chance to go to Tahiti, do that. Another one that stands out would be Santorini, Greece. That is the most beautiful island, and the water around it is absolutely gorgeous. So that is a real must that you definitely need to do. Just so many. We went to probably every Caribbean island in the Caribbean, and they kind of all start looking alike.
Yeah.
And your dad loved cruises.
Yes.
We went on 40 some cruises.
Really? It was that, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that many.
And he loved that. And by the time we'd get off the ship, he'd know about everybody on the ship.
Definitely.
Very social.
Yeah. So those years and those trips, you felt like you don't have any regrets
No.
in that respect.
No, I did all that travel. Yes, I miss it, but I got to see so much. So
Mhm.
that helps in, filling the gap when you don't do it anymore.
Absolutely. So I wanted to share also what Chris wrote. I am a caregiver too. Thank you for saying it is hard. Ugh, hardest job I have ever done. And that the other thing that's so hard is after when my dad passed away, and it was actually sudden because he was only in the memory care facility for 2 weeks, and we didn't know if he'd be in there for years. And here
Right.
he only lasted 2 weeks. You at that point had been all consumed in caregiving. So it was like sun up to sundown. You were getting his meds and getting his meals and helping him get dressed.
Right.
How did that work for you just emotionally, and, having to transition then to now you're alone and you're not taking care of anybody anymore?
Well, I think it helped that because I did move, and
true.
I had that move on my mind. I had that whole month to keep busy. That's what was very important, to keep busy. And it's like, well, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
And then when the transition was done and I'd moved into the condo, you go through a stage, you really don't have an interest in doing anything. I like to read. I watch a lot of TV, but I didn't even have an interest to pick up a book for a while.
Mm.
You're so overwhelmed and dealing with the loss that you really don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah. And the other part that was so different too is you, by having this new place, then you, in some ways, like you said, you weren't walking around every corner,
Right.
being reminded
Right.
of all the times and memories with
I
Dad.
think it would have been tougher staying at the house. I really do.
Mhm.
But everybody's different.
Yeah.
And some people are not ready to leave and don't do anything too fast. Take your time. And it was thrown into me that I had to, do it quickly. And it worked for me to do that. But everybody's different. And I tell other ladies that I'm friends with that are going through it, don't make fast decisions. And if you want to stay in your home and you're able to take care of it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do what your heart tells you. Don't do what other people tell you you should be doing. And everybody grieves differently. It's different for everybody, and you just have to do what you have to do yourself.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think for you, there were times where, you've looked back and felt like that was almost too much change. But the alternative, you would have been overwhelmed had you stayed it was basically a 4-level house.
Right.
So
I wouldn't have felt good doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't feel safe living alone.
Right.
I feel where my condo is, it's very safe.
Because you have a
and
secure,
tight security
building, and then
Right.
she's on the 3rd floor.
Right. And people so close, and everybody's wonderful there, and they care for each other, or, it's,
You and Shirley text every day.
my 90-year-old neighbor, Shirley, is just a delight. She has lost 2 husbands, and
You would never know she's 90.
No. And just if I have a question, I can ask her because she can remember it or knows the answer. She just is a true delight, And we text every day. How you doing? You having a good day? What are you doing today? Just to know that somebody cares about you. And she just is down the hallway from me. So I'll say, I'll be right down.
Yeah, she's great. So the other thing is, as those of you watching can relate, if your mom, like mine, is a widow and lives alone, then my sister and I always laugh that if we text or call and she doesn't answer, you know, you do have that panic moment where you're like, why isn't she answering? And so then we'll like call each other if we can't get a hold of her and say like, where's mom? Have you talked to mom? So it is nice that we then know how to get in touch with these other adjacent neighbors so that we could call if we needed to and, you know, go walk down the hall and check on mom. And my sister and her family still live not far away, less than 10 minutes away from you.
Right.
So that's such a blessing because then my niece and nephew, one a sophomore in high school, and then Ava, my middle school niece, she's in 7th grade. So you still pick her up every day from school.
I pick her up every day, and she's into her friends now. And of course, they can't have their phone all day at school. So when she gets in the car, she's into her phone. But and sometimes I'll say, Ava May, the most beautiful girl at RGA. And she's always got her nose in her phone. And then I always say, now, did you have a good day? Yeah, had a good day. So.
Yeah. They want to, you know how it is. Those of you with middle schoolers, they want to get to their devices. So,
yes.
But for you, going to, you know, your grandchildren's events and having that regular pickup has been
it's been a blessing.
Good way to keep you going.
Right. And right after Jim passed away, I would take her to school also. And it got me up. It got me going. You need a purpose. And my grandchildren are my purpose.
Yeah, definitely. That's been, and they are so close with my mom because that she's on both sides, my sister's family and then my family. My mom is the only grandparent left. So my in-laws passed away quite a few years ago. And then my sister's husband, her in-laws passed away years ago. Mm-hmm. So you've been with dad, the only grandparents. And then when he passed away almost 5 years ago, she's the matriarch now, the last one standing.
Right.
And, you know, we think about some of your friends over the years, they had health problems and we always thought dad would outlive a lot of the people that he didn't.
in our type friend groups, he would be the one that I would have guessed in the men would have lasted the longest because he was always good shape, watched his diet,
worked out multiple times a week,
walked, jogged for years, and then had to go into walking after knee replacement. Right. So you never know.
No. And when it came on, it was so sudden. He had that diagnosis within, you know, a few short weeks of having these initial symptoms, which for him were hallucinations and they were so pronounced. And so for us, I mean, we went from our dad being seemingly healthy to this complete shift of now he has this very serious health challenge that he's not going to recover from. And in fact, it accelerated from that point forward. So those of you who've had that tough diagnosis or who've walked through that, that is such a shock. Right. Because your life as you knew it then instantly changed.
Instantly. When he was diagnosed, it was a doctor who I had been her daughter's principal. And she walked in and we looked at each other, and Jim was in the hospital at that time, right when he was diagnosed. And she was absolutely wonderful. And she observed him for maybe 10 minutes, and she pulls me aside and she says, I believe that Jim has Lewy body dementia. I had never heard of Lewy body. And she said, there's 3 things I'm going to tell you, and you need to listen very carefully. You are not going to be able to do this alone. You need to start looking for a facility for him to go to.
Mm.
And she said, I think his is going to go very quickly.
Hmm.
And she was right on all three.
Yeah, she really was.
What a shock. I mean, we knew there was something drastically wrong when his hallucinations, he saw people that weren't there.
And it's so real to them.
Yes, yes. And he would, talk about it, and he'd say, well, this was when he was still communicating, because eventually they get to the point they can't communicate with this Lewy body. And they can either see people, or sometimes they hallucinate and see animals.
Mm.
And his was people. And he would say, well, I'm not even going to tell you because I know you'll say they're not there.
Yeah.
And I would say, Jim, I know you see them. I know you see them. But I said, I don't. And I said, you know me. If there's somebody sitting over there on the lounge, I'm going to get them out of the house. And I would say, are you afraid of them? No, I'm not afraid of them. He even believed there were circus people
Yeah.
living in the woods behind the house. He described them. He said they're all painted up. They have feathers. And he said, well, and then the paranoia kicks in with the Lewy body. They're stealing from us. They're taking things from us.
And even longtime friends, he thought they were a threat to him, like you were having an affair.
Yeah, oh, yes. And the Dr. Adeluri even mentioned this. She said, has he accused you of having an affair? I said, yes. She said, that goes with it. And he did. He turned on one of his very close friends, and it just broke the friend's heart. And he was convinced that I was having an affair with him. So if that happens, if you're living with a spouse with Lewy body, and that happens, that's part of it.
And it was awful because then that friend felt so isolated from my dad,
and he
because he wanted to come over and so that was a double blow to him to hear about the diagnosis.
And he was the first one through the visitation line in tears. I mean, it just broke his heart because he and Jim worked out together.
Oh, yeah. They were very much regular hanging out kind of friends.
Right.
So if you are watching and you are like me, a relative, or in my case, the daughter of a couple going through this, one thing about your loved one getting a diagnosis that you can help with is, in this case, I knew there was no way that my mom was going to be in a position to call every close, friend and relative and explain this. So I called all of the people that we knew mattered in our lives and needed to know this was the diagnosis and this is how drastically, everything is going to shift. Because then from that point on, every time that we were out in public or doing things with my dad, it was clear to people that we knew once they saw us and saw him that something was wrong.
Right. Exactly.
And so it was just tough to have to make those calls. But for my mom, that was one more thing that she, would have been burdened with. And then similarly, when my dad passed away, I did not want you to have to make all the calls and tell everybody that he had passed away. And so it's
if a family member can take that over for you, it helps a lot.
Yeah, because it's an awful call to make and an awful conversation. But imagine what my mom was going through, because here she's just now losing the love of her life, her high school sweetheart that's, now in the throes and ultimately passing away from this horrible disease. And so it just was something where she was so overwhelmed because you were planning a funeral, you were going to be moving. I mean, it was just so much happening. And then it was so hectic and it was so busy when it all came to a screeching halt. Then that was probably hard.
Right. Well, and a friend of mine, I was kind of complaining after this happened, and I said, there's just so much to do. There's so many things you have to deal with. And she said to me, when it's really going to get tough is when you don't have anything to do.
Mm.
And how true that was, because everybody goes home. You've gotten everything taken care of. You've decided where you're going to live, and you're sitting there and you think, now what am I going to do?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's so true. It's like, and it's also a feeling of the purpose is lost for some
Right.
women if they've been the caregiver for so long. It's like
Right.
now they feel like, what do I have to keep
Right.
going for?
One of the worst experiences right after it happened, I needed to go to the grocery store. And I walk in the grocery store and, get the cart. Well, every place I looked, I would see something that I would be putting in the cart for him.
Mm.
I literally had to push the cart aside and leave the store.
Wow.
That's how
Wow.
emotional it was.
I bet.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. And now, as time has passed, you still get hit with those waves of grief, but
Yes.
you feel like you can handle it better now.
Well, yeah, time doesn't take it away. Nothing will ever take it away, but it becomes more manageable.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it can still hit. Holidays are tough.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal is to get through a holiday without crying in front of the family. And that Christmas is tough.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't, I mean, we're grateful that you are comfortable being yourself. And if you show your emotion, that's something
sometimes
we support. We're not upset if our mom obviously is having a down day or a moment. So what's interesting is you guys both decided before Dad passed away that you wanted to be cremated. So now
Right.
we do have my dad's ashes, not in like the urns like you see on TV shows. This is like a really, really, I would say,
simple, just a simple
yes, marble
looking urn. Mm-hmm.
very aesthetically modern and pleasing. And she has it on the mantle in her condo. And then, so we
Right.
feel like in that sense, I mean, with my dad and the ashes being sort of with us and being ever present in the condo, then if something happened to our mom, then we would have her urn, which you actually picked yours out.
Oh yeah, it's already planned
to look
and
like
picked
Dad's,
out.
and then we would bury the ashes together out in this beautiful cemetery out in rural Illinois, out in the middle of the farmland.
Jim always wanted to be buried at Foosland, Illinois, where his parents and his brother are buried. And I was the one that came up with the idea. I said, whichever one goes first, let's keep the ashes. And then when the second one goes, then the girls can take them both urns, and take them to the Foosland Cemetery and have us buried there. And so he seemed okay with that. Now he has remained on the mantle.
Mm-hmm.
If I had gone first, mine would probably be in the closet by now. And
oh my gosh.
I have
that's
a
funny.
lot of pictures of us, beautiful canvas pictures that are all around my condo, and I still have them there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my other friends, Dawn, at Park Edge, Dawn, Shirley, and I, we were doing our little happy hour, and Dawn said, "Now, Joanna, I don't mean this to upset you or be critical, but she said, if you start dating," she said, "what do you think the guy's going to think when he comes in here and he sees all these pictures of you and Jim?" And I said, "well, if he doesn't like him, he can get the hell out."
Exactly. I love it. Well, and it's funny because you did decide early on, you definitely had some interested parties.
Well, and that is what is so strange. When I didn't think I could live alone, I mean, it wasn't a week after he died. It was several months after he had died. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go online and look at those senior dating sites and just kind of see what's out there. And so I did have one date. And we met halfway. He was from St. Louis.
Much younger guy.
15 years younger. And I came to the conclusion, this guy's after my purse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is
They
true.
either want you, at my age, they either want you to be their mother and take care of them or cook for them, or they want your money.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two. And you have to be very careful about that. So anyway, so Sarah started doing her investigative research on this guy and found out on Facebook that he'd been married twice and he had lied and said, anyway, that one didn't work out.
It was not, thankfully you ended it before
Yeah.
it got
And
too
then,
serious.
and then a cohort of Will's, my son-in-law, said, I know this guy. I just repaired his chimney, and I think he and your mom might really kick it off. George was his name. So I meet George at this restaurant. Well, George and I were not going to kick it off. So he was
Nice guy, but not your type. Not your type. So that was kind of the beginning and end of your dating life.
And I'm telling you, you take a look at 80-year-old guys out there, and you take a look at me. We don't jive.
You would have to go quite a bit younger, I think, to meet your match.
Yeah,
so to
and
speak.
there aren't very many men out there that want some woman older.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
I got that out of my system. And Shirley and I often say, we can live alone. We don't need a man.
Yeah, and a lot of women don't want to take care of another man.
No. And I mean, I don't cook anymore. Unless you kids are coming, I might make some things. I do a lot of carry-in. I do a lot of frozen meals in the microwave.
Yeah, because it's just you.
Talk about change, how your cooking and kitchen lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
It just,
Well, you put in a lot of years in the kitchen.
right. I cooked a lot of meals.
I wanted to mention a couple more comments. Our friend Monique, she said, how cool is that? Your mom is such a beautiful lady, so elegant.
Thank you,
She
Monique.
could be everybody's mom, and it is true about the friends. Amy Shannon said, what a treasure she is. And your mother is so beautiful, so beautiful.
Wow, thank you.
Judy, love your conversation. I was caregiving till the end of the year. It's so hard. My friends have been great to me. And Rebecca, one of our cousins by marriage, is watching. Dick and Bonnie's niece, Rebecca, is watching.
Hi, Rebecca.
So we're glad to have
From
you.
Florida.
Yeah, one thing Monique said is at least your mom has family. I have no one, and friends are not at a hand's reach. Well, we're glad that you've become our friend, and we're grateful that we've gotten to know you. She's the one who made us sourdough bread. She's wonderful.
Oh, my.
Angie said, this is perfect timing for me. My mom had a stroke in October. She spent 3 months in hospitals, rehab, and the nursing home. She's back in her home on her own and doing well, but it's a lot of anxiety for all of us. She's as independent, stubborn as Tara's mom. Hearing you two talk is giving me a lot of peace and comfort this morning. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And we're sorry for what you're going through. And we hope, that it only gets better from here. James is watching. That's the AKA my sister Bird. She was sad that you.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, you missed co-hosting with me Monday because our times are so screwed up, our sleeping with the time change. So you actually slept in on Monday, which never, and for her, sleeping in was like till 6 o'clock. Yeah. Lisa said, my dad was up straight for 72 hours one week. It was awful. And Alice said, I know where your mom's coming from when trying to juggle everything at once. Have to finish watching the chat later. More appointments. Get your appointments done. Enjoy your special day with family. Michelle said, do what your heart tells you, not what others tell you should be doing.
Correct.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. And that's the other thing too that's so hard is I'm a doer. And so I, of course, in that moment, I wanted to help you and try to what can I do? And let's do all the things. And so sometimes you just have to give people their space too.
Right.
And just say, well, cause we packed up dad's clothes and that was kind of
hard.
a rush.
That was hard because some people aren't ready to give those their spouses clothes away and all that. It's the last thing you can hang on to them, through their clothes and their things. And that was very hard. And maybe it was good it happened that way. Something that Tara did that was very special, our first Christmas, she took all of his suits and sport coats and found a lady in Iowa, and she made 3 blankets, one for myself, one for Sarah, and one for her. And I see that every day. And that was, boy, it brought the tears when I opened that gift.
Yeah.
But how special that was, something I could hang on to that was his.
And then I have that blanket, that quilt with all my dad's suit squares in my living room at home. And so, I mean, it is a daily reminder if you are so inclined to have memories that are tangible in that way with the suits cut into, a quilt. So we're actually already at the top of the hour. It's 6 o'clock here. It's 8 o'clock where you are. And I should mention that because we're live on my phone and I didn't bring my computer on this trip, we're not streaming on YouTube as we normally do. So this Facebook Live is the stream. And if you want to go back and watch it, and then I'll actually download it when I get back next week, because I'll want to keep this, because the kids will want to see this too if they missed it. And if you watch the group chat on a regular basis, you know that our normal sponsor identification happens. So I should mention thanks to Splendore Spa, the Med Spa in CF, Cedar Falls is one of our sponsors, as well as Winterset, Iowa has that great Middle River Cabinetry Company. And our newest sponsor is Azalea Lane Boutique. So thanks to our friends there for supporting the group chat. Amanda is coming back with her family after their trip, so she has lots to share. She'll be going live soloing on Friday when we'll still be down here in Tucson. And when I reconnect with her next week, I'll share all the details with you about what we uncover in our pseudo investigation of Nancy Guthrie. And going to Nancy Guthrie's house in Tucson later this week, at least trying to drive by it. Thanks for all the hearts and the love you've shared this morning. We're so glad that you wanted to hang out with us. And thanks to you, Mom, for being my co-host.
Everybody have a great day. It was great getting to be part of the show.
Yeah. So have a great rest of your week and stay warm. And we'll connect again when we're back in Iowa, back in the Midwest, when the weather hopefully is much improved from what you guys are experiencing now.